know about you, but I really enjoyed watching Andrea Berta celebrate Arsenal lifting the trophy. Unfortunately, it was the last time he was ever seen. This is the ArsenalVision Podcast. My name is Elliot Smith, the Black Men's Getting Gunner. Yeah, where is Andrea Berta? Where is this guy? What's he doing? No one knows. No one knows. He's doing stuff. Of course he is. Is he? Yeah, of course he is. But is he? Yeah, he is. Stop it. We're going to talk transfers because why not? It is summer. The World Cup is wrapping up. We'll talk a little bit about England, get Tim's take on that. We had a Friday Night Clive on Friday that was, I think it's one of my favorite we've ever done, and really talked about some of the transfers that we're linked with and the tactical implications for that. And is there such a thing as first choice? You'd be stunned to hear Clive's resounding comments on picking a first 11, the importance of having a first choice, and why only the first 11 matters and the rest of the players really are superfluous to requirements. So really interesting chat. Hope you'll check that out. We'll have maybe some scouting videos this week, definitely some World Cup dailies this week. Lots of good stuff coming. Transfer Daily is going to get ready to kick off. Guys, it's a fun time of year once the World Cup ends and before the season starts. And unfortunately, that's going to be like 2 days, but that's okay. And we'll have news about the Dublin show soon. Love you for being here. I feel like I used to take more time out in the podcast to express our appreciation for you. And I should continue to do that because it is the joy of a lifetime to have you here and have a chance to share this with you. So wherever you are and whatever you're doing, I hope your summer's going well. I hope you're doing well. I hope you have joy and happiness and support in your life. And if you don't, please know that people care about you. So with that having been said, there's nothing left for me to do but to introduce Tim. Hello, Tim.
Hello there. Clive and I will do a one club this week as well. We've been promising that for a long time.
Yeah, there's 3 signings on the women's side?
Four done so far. So lots to talk about there. So we will do that.
4. Any word on whether Andrea Berta can take any credit for that? Can we put that in his win column?
Alas, no. He has nothing to do with the women's side whatsoever.
That's a shame. Okay, that's a shame. And here with me now is Paz. Hello, Paul.
Woohoo! That all sounds like very exciting programming on that side of things. Should we announce that this week we launch, Elliot, Friday Night Paul? Are we going to announce it?
Well, yes. I hadn't told you this, Paul. It's actually going to be Sunday Night Paul. It's going to be live. You can join us. It'll be from the hours of 4:15 to 4:25 a.m. I guess technically Sunday night into Monday. So depending on where you are, that could be like 12 p.m. 12 a.m. It could be 4 a.m. But we're looking forward to it. It's going to be some are saying the finest 15 minutes on the internet. Yeah. Okay. Look, Tim, we got to start with you, my friend. You are a proud Englishman.
Oh, yeah.
You are a proud Englishman, and you are living in a nation that can call itself one of 4 semifinalists. I was happy for England. I was sad for Martin Odegaard, of course. I don't think it was the best conditions for football, and so the game was a little bit interesting. There was controversy. We won't get into that if you want all that. The World Cup Daily covered all of it in detail. Really, what I want to get from you is just your thoughts on England making the semifinal and how you're experiencing the journey of your nation through this tournament.
Yeah, it's really interesting because you kind of expect that of England now, and it's difficult to remember at times that, and I know England haven't won anything. This feels very Arsenal until this May. We keep competing for the title. We think we're going to do it. We think we're going to do it. I do think this group of players is going to win something with England, but obviously you're in the semi-finals and it's all coin flip matches now. That's just the way it is, and they're going to be extra time and they're going to be penalties, and then the question is it the year that it drops your way? And when you've got the quality of teams left, I do think these are the 4 best teams. Broadly speaking, I think it's the right set of semi-finals, really. And I think England have a 25% chance with everyone else, but maybe France have looked the most complete team in the tournament. But the thing is with England, and what you, I think, get used to when you watch international football tournaments, is that the idea of what good looks like compared to the club game is very, very different. And in international football tournaments, what France and Spain do is you don't get the ball. So they don't concede any goals. They don't concede any shots because they don't give you the ball. And none of the teams really, Spain haven't really popped in several games I've seen. England haven't either. There have been games where, France v Paraguay, France kind of squeaked through that one. Argentina have continued to rely on the greatest player ever to varying extents. And ultimately what happens in international tournaments is like you just do what you can to get through and hope your stars deliver. And that's kind of what these semi-finalists share in common. Messi's delivered, Bellingham in particular has delivered for England, Mbappe has delivered, and Spain's best player, Mikel Merino, has delivered as well. And those are the players going into the tournament. You'd have said, well, those are the guys who are going to turn up and win it for you if you're going to win it. So, yeah, I don't think England were great. They arguably got a little bit of the rub of the green on some decisions, although I think a lot of that, to be honest, is quite overstated. But luck was a little bit on their side. I think it was a very, very even game. Norway could easily have won it. But ultimately, the story of the game's on the scoreboard, really. Jude Bellingham turned up and did something, and that means England are through, and that's what your star players do. So, yeah, very excited about the game on Wednesday. And I was just thinking about, like, 2018 and, like, when England got to that World Cup semi-final, like, they hadn't done that for 28 years. It felt so new and so different. Whereas now it kind of feels like England are, at a minimum, a semi-final team in terms of talent. And this group, again, it feels slightly Arsenal adjacent. This group has a great chance of delivering something. But we've seen with like Belgium and teams like that, you know, your so-called golden generations, they don't always put silverware on the sideboard because there aren't as many opportunities to do it in the international game.
Yeah. Paul, any quick thoughts on that? And, you know, maybe like I know England have gotten some goals from like their, I guess, what would you say, like their poor man's Mikel Merino, Jude Bellingham, which has been exciting. Any thoughts maybe on the Arsenal players? Like it's a testament to England's talent that they can get this far where two of their best players, Rice and Saka, have either been gutting it out or in some cases not even playing at all. Obviously, my interest primarily is for Saka to just get his feet up and Rice to do that as well, and all the Arsenal players to do that. But any thoughts on England?
Yeah, look, I think this England group, as Tim says, they have something about them that other teams. I always tend to find myself kind of, I wouldn't say supporting, but like pulling for England for most big competitions for a while till I get to a certain point where they piss me off. Normally around the quarterfinals or semi-finals, it's not so much they're coming home thing, but there's some part where they get way too big for their boots, and being an Irish fella, that's the point at which I remember that I'm not supposed to exactly be pulling for them. So, but they haven't reached that point yet. And maybe that's partly to do with this group of players and this manager and the vibe they have. And certainly Tuchel did his best to dispel any semblance of arrogance within the team itself after his post-match comments and all that good stuff. I think they have it in them in a way that other squads for England, I'm like, around this point, I think, they're starting to get out. They're pushing into a level of water that's above their chin. This team, I think, mentality-wise, I think that's what Tuchel's so wound up about. He's not playing the game that was just played. In his head, he's playing the teams that are coming up in the semi-final and the final. And in that sense, he doesn't think this team is playing well enough. And he's got fogging standards, as the man used to say. But he sees more from this team, and they need to get their... And I think he's right. They need to play better than that. Or the teams they're playing with need to drop their standards. It's France for me. I think they're clear favourites. And then I think it's England, and that could be the final. So,
yeah. I mean, the semifinals won't be weather affected per se. The final, it just depends on the weather in New York, New Jersey. One of my favorite places in America, by the way, New York, New Jersey. A really great city, New York, New Jersey. You should visit if you get a chance. But that's what they're telling us to call that stadium. But enough of that. Look, the reality is that the World Cup is starting to get towards its end. There's not games every day. And that means people are ready to start concentrating on transfers a bit. And I would like Arsenal to do that as well. one thing I want to talk about, Tim, just as a table setter for this conversation, there is this thing we have to do now. This thing where we celebrate and appreciate and continue to make sure we don't lose the excitement and good feeling of having just won the title. We won the title. 22 years waiting, and the joy was more significant than I even anticipated. The crowds, the scenes of people coming together to celebrate together, the parade, like just extraordinary outpouring of both relief and joy in equal measure, right? And we will feel an affection for the players and the manager who did that for us forever. That's how this works in sport. Flags fly forever is a saying that you hear in American sport. And it's true. It is also true that you can be appreciative and celebratory of what just happened and be open to the idea of honest analysis about where the team is now and how it can improve. Because while if we never won anything again, I would still be thankful for and love this group, I would like them to go on and continue to win. And we have a podcast to do that has to engage in analysis as well. So, like, how are you going to approach being able to critically analyze both the players, the performances, the needs of the squad, the operation of the backroom staff, without letting your sort of joy and appreciation cloud your ability to do that? Because, like, I can't get angry at Arsenal right now, but I recognize that I should be able to critically analyze the club if I want to continue to sit here and talk about this football club, you know?
Yeah, it's interesting when thinking back to other times we won the league. In 2004, at the end of that season, Carnu, Wiltord and Ray Parlour left. Actually all on free transfers, which wasn't brilliantly done, but you know, particularly for someone like, I think for like Carnu and Wiltord, it was very clearly like, that, this has run its course. And with Ray Parlour, it's kind of age and you're losing a club legend. But actually,
feels a bit Liverpool, by the way, with Salah going on a free and Van Dijk aging towards the end on a free and Trent going on a free and Konate and but with like players like that, sometimes it's a really good time to do it. So I'm thinking about someone like Leandro Trossard, for example. I've written my column for this week and it's about Leandro Trossard and it's, you know, because I'm expecting things to go through there. It's like a bit of a tribute. And I kind of feel like this is a really nice time, actually, just in terms of, you know, the narrative arc. Like, he won the league. Off you go into the sunset, my friend. Like, very few players did more than you to get that, and this is a lovely juncture to kind of move on, like in a kind of in a storytelling narrative sense. After we won the double in '98, Ian Wright left that summer, and that's quite a painful departure. But I tell you what makes a painful departure a lot easier when they've got a big shiny gold medal around their necks. And you say, well done, you got that thing that you were really, really kind of going for. So in many respects, I think that warm, fuzzy feeling can help, actually. Certainly when it comes to, you know, the act of saying goodbye, as it were. And so if and when that tweet, that Instagram drops from Leandro Trossard, when he probably leaves, there won't be a dry eye in the house. And every single Arsenal fan in the world will be bashing the like button because you know, we achieved we achieved a lot of what we wanted to achieve. So I actually think in a way it can make it easier. Actually, I think it would be a much more difficult, knotty conversation if after we lose to Man City in April, it kind of crumbles and City win the league again. And, you know, if someone like Leandro Trossard, for example, is leaving in that scenario, you're probably going, yeah, well, we never won it with you, did we? So it really, really like kind of changes the conversation, I think. I'm still really excited about it. And I think particularly like the Champions League final is probably a useful frame of reference because we can see, let's be honest, what the bar is there. And I think even if we'd won that game, I don't think any Arsenal fans would say about our attack, for example. No Arsenal fans would say, yeah, we don't need to do anything in attack, we're fine. I think that's just been obvious, like, since the beginning of last season, that was going to be a preoccupation this summer, and rightly so. So I actually don't think it will be that difficult unless we really, you know, news emerges that we're really looking at selling like a pillar player that we don't expect. Yeah. Look, I'm gonna miss Leo. I think Leo is one of the most savvy signings we've made in 20 years. And I don't mean that with any hyperbole. I think he came in January. He was a player that was acquired at a very reasonable fee to fill in the positions where we had players we liked. But ultimately, the sign of his quality is that as those players we liked maybe didn't always sparkle to the extent we hoped, he took their shirt. And, you know, if you look back on key moments throughout the last few seasons, anything we accomplished, and I realize we didn't accomplish quite what we may have liked over 4 seasons, but over 4 seasons we've been very good. 3 of those seasons he's here. He was involved. I mean, there's the goal that gets us past Porto, you know, which was a really important moment, I think, because of how the season was going and what was happening in the context there. If we don't get past Porto in that Champions League campaign, I think the end of that season has a lot of more pointed questions and frustration. So I thought that was a big moment. Obviously, he scores the goal against West Ham. He started this season on fire when, you know, we needed to get out of the blocks hot. He's just been there to do the things that were needed. He wasn't always spectacular, but this is, to me, what a real high-level squad player is. Someone who is somewhere between pushing the starters for their shirt and able to be brought in whenever you need him. And he was. And he was. In fact, we've traditionally done player ratings, season player ratings. We haven't done it yet for this past season because I was worried if we did it in May, late May or early June, it would just be 10, 10, 10, 10, 10, 10, 10, 10 all the way down. And I wanted it to be a little bit more honest. So we're going to try to do that. Might even be as soon as Thursday of this week we'll do our player ratings. But I look at our 23-24 season player ratings, and I gave 2 10s. One to Saliba and one to Leo Trossard. And it was because I looked at what Leo did from that January to May where we almost won a title. And he made the shirt his, and he was spectacular for that run-in when we were emptying stadiums everywhere we go. So I think that this move is a shame. Like, I would have kept him. And I realize you lose him for free at your peril. But, Paul, this is what I wanted to ask you about. I think we need to sign a top elite quality left-sided attacker. More on that in a moment. But I also think maybe Martinelli's time is coming to an end at Arsenal in the sense that I'm not sure he has much more to show us off the left, and I'm not sure he's got a role in other positions. He's got market value. I would have tried to sell him for good money and let Leo be the bridge so the next guy can come in with a bit of an easier path. And, you know, I realize others may disagree, but I'm curious how you feel about that, the idea that Leo could have given us one more year of bridging to whoever the next guy is supposed to be.
Yeah, I'm in that camp. Now, I do have a tendency to want to keep all the players. My daughter... Including our directors of football and our manager, which is why our best ever sale is Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain. Yeah, there are areas of running a football club we can demonstrate we have improved on, including player sales. So, like, it's one of those strong opinions held loosely because I know they've got to sell people, and that's a function of who not just you want to sell, but who the market wants to buy. The market wants to buy Leo, so he got his timing right in terms of it. Like, he's done himself a lot of favors and us by making him highly marketable in the market. So, look, that's a reason on its own why you make this move. But yeah, if you're going to bring in a top level starter of a left winger, I see keeping Leo around for another year or so, or he might even have 2 years. Maybe you up him one more year. I mean, when you see him not just playing well in a season, but sprinting up and down the wing all game long, every game he's picked, and he's picked for most games he's fit, and in international football, nobody's rushing to take him off the pitch, because his attacking output and his smarts and how he covers a team and how he lets the team breathe and covers his defensive duty as good as pretty much any attacking player in the league. And if a guy goes past him, you're like, oh, if he goes past him, you're not going to catch him. Leo does, not by outrunning him, but by running at like 90% of the speed of the other guy and waiting for him to pause or slow down and get his head up. He's a phenomenal player who has maxed out his capabilities, and like, if he can get his head around, compete. Like, we'll bring in some superstar. We'll bring in Lamine Yamal, put him on the left wing and say he's a starter, and like poor old Leo's going to have to play second string, and by November, Leo will have wrestled the starting position away from Lamine Yamal. He's quite something, and you shouldn't bet against him. And to your point on Martinelli, I think unless we look to find other ways of using him, where he gets a little more central, gets in behind, makes those runs in behind, then the Premier League at the moment with Arsenal doesn't suit him. He suits him a different style of play that has a little more open space for him to run into. And so, yeah, I can see the argument, but I definitely think this is one where I say this only as a fan, even less of an expert here than normal, in that like they got to make their moves and you don't know who's coming in and who's offering money. So I'm fine with it. But yeah, if you ask me, I think the pragmatic move would be keeping Leo around and seeing what you get for Martinelli. And I love Martinelli, but...
Yeah, and I want to say, we did a scouting video of Christos Solis. I think he's going to be good. I think he is going to be good for us. But, I mean, he's clearly not, I think, being brought in to be the guy off the left. I think someone else will be. And if you go into the season with Solis and another new guy, and no Martinelli and no Leo, then you've got some gray area there about what that initial betting in period will look like if those players hit the ground running and you lose some continuity and some potential high floor. So we'll see. Look, I mean, I get selling him. It's just, I think you can make an argument for the opposite.
Can I ask a quick question?
Sure.
Do we think Morgan Rogers is that other player off the left and centrally? Like, is that...
Well, so Paul, my instinct is yes. But it's funny because this time last summer I was saying if we get Eza, he could play off the left the way Leo does. And he just never did. And this idea that we're going to buy someone who has always fundamentally been a midfielder where they are currently, and we're going to convert them to a winger... Until I see us do it, I feel like I'm walking down the same intellectual trapdoor that I did last summer.
But then, so say we buy Rogers, do you think that's it then? Do you think and we get Solis and Rogers, do you think there's another left winger?
I just don't think there's the money for, yeah. I mean, if you're going to go, especially if you go Bruno and Solis and Rogers and a defender, where's the Barcola money come from? Because he's going to be another 100. And I mean, I'm not saying it's impossible, but suddenly you are looking at selling not just Leo, but probably Martinelli and probably Ethan and maybe even someone else like an Odegaard to make all that work. And then what you say is we've taken a lot of consistency and predictability out of the team to replace it. And that can work. And I'm not saying I'll be against it, but this is something I wanted to actually raise, Tim, because I think it leads me to an interesting sort of issue I'm having with the market. I can't tell you who the clear, obvious, wide forward signing should be. Vinny Jr., great. Okay, everyone keeps saying that. I hear it. But here's something to think about. This season in the Premier League, the top 10 goal scorers were basically 9 players who play centrally, 8 strikers, 9 players who play centrally, and 1 wide player, Antoine Semenyo, who for City actually really wasn't like a winger. Like I don't think he played wide, but I'll give it to you. Yeah, second striker. So really, of the top 10 players, 8 strikers and 2 second strikers. No wingers, really. Once upon a time, that list was loaded with wingers. The wide players were where the goals were. I look at the World Cup. Who are the wingers tearing it up? Who are... Lamine Yamal isn't even tearing it up. Defenses have gotten better at finding ways to get 2 players over, getting 5 in the back to create overloads against wingers and force them to bring it back central. We're in a weird period of goals being shared around. There aren't a lot of outlier elite goal scorers, Haaland notwithstanding, because he's an alien. But like, it is an interesting issue, Tim, that I feel like left wing is an area we must improve. But I think we're in a fallow period for high-end wide talent. And I wonder if you think that's actually a talent issue or a tactical issue or a fullback golden era, whatever you think it is, that's leading us to see fewer and fewer and fewer wide attacking players dominate games, at least from a goal scoring standpoint, than we used to see.
Yeah, I suspect it's a few things. I suspect, like, for example, Mo Salah no longer being in his prime, that would have a bit of a not quite a once-in-a-generation player, but close to it,
Oh, definitely, yeah.
So that would account for some of it. Might be a little bit tactical as well in terms of, teams couldn't find strikers for ages, and that's still a relatively fallow market, I'd say, as well. So then, a lot of teams start to channel through their wide players a bit more. Teams are getting a bit better at blocking up the centre and pressing, so you probably are more likely to go out wide. And so now there's what's that the Einstein thing about relativity, every action has an equal and opposite reaction type thing. So it could be a little bit tactical. It could
Is that relativity? I don't think
no it wasn't relativity.
Wasn't that Neddy Newton?
Yeah, that's
Yes.
Newton.
Yes. Yeah.
It's all good.
Sorry.
You're fine. Keep going.
I'm getting my
I just don't want. We got a lot of physicists that listen to the pod, and I do not want to upset
Obviously.
the physicists in our community. Okay, go for it, please.
But yeah, so I think there's probably a fair bit behind it. And then, so, you're talking about, like, is Mbappe a wide player? Is Vinny Jr. a wide player? Like, Brazil were playing Vinny Jr. as an attacker in a 4-4-2, basically. Mbappe, it's, kind of playing through the centre, but really as a free role, he does what he wants. That's kind of, and those have been like the real game breakers, right? The Bellingham, someone like that, Marino, like guys who arrive late into the area. They can be difficult to accommodate sometimes, though, because some of those players aren't always amazingly technically secure on the ball, or perhaps they're, in the interests of being that enterprising, they leave something behind them. So there's probably like a little bit of kind of cat and mouse about it. I also do think that the market for wide players is, the prices are really, really high for wide attackers now. So like even like a Barcola, who looks like a really, really good player to me, and but that would certainly cost 9 figures, I think, to get that done. And I don't really know what value is in the transfer market anymore. But instinctively, once it goes over the 100 million mark, it's a bit like that has to, like Declan Rice. Yeah, I'm paying that for Declan Rice. I don't think there's another player like that, or there's very, very few. That's kind of fine with me. But like, am I paying 100 million for like a really good left winger who certainly I think would raise the level? Do you just take the fact that you're being overcharged? Like, again, I was writing the Trossard article earlier, and I was recalling the price we paid for him. It's 27.5 million. But when he had 6 months left on his contract and he was 28, per the conversation we were having last week, Elliot, in terms of like economic value, not a fantastic transfer to buy a 28-year-old for 27.5 million when he's got 6 months left on his deal. Has that ever been a discussion ever since we did it? No, because it probably didn't look amazing on the balance sheet, but he's won the Premier League with us and been an amazing player. So I think it's possibly quite multifactorial, and what I'm really interested in is where the next players are going to be, or are they always just going to be like, Ronaldo and Messi, like in their primes? What was their position really? Like, they weren't really wingers, they weren't really strikers. Like, players get to a level where it's like, actually, we're kind of going to let you do what you want, really.
Just get out there and do your thing, mate.
Yeah, Harry Kane as well. It's not like he just hangs around the penalty area. It is just
where is the space really is where they play.
Yeah, just go and like feel the game a little bit. So yeah, I think for me it's more a question of where the value is in the wide player market, and there's not a lot, which is why the signing it looks like we're gonna make of so I keep saying Solis, it's just a lovely word to say, Solis.
Yeah. Solis.
It's probably not how it's pronounced at all, but
if that's how you want to say it, Tim, just say it that way.
We all like a bit of solace, right? It's
a quantum of it, in fact. Yeah,
it's a lovely word to say, and it's got a good meaning. So, that's where for me, like, that's potentially a bit of value. Potentially it's not. Potentially it's another Fabio Vieira, and we spend 30+ million on someone who doesn't cut it. Like
you have to buy players like this, though,
costs now,
right? Yeah, I mean, you have to. You can't just take the shots in the 9-figure market, but you have to do this. Look, I was looking at this. Of the top 30, of the top 40 goal scorers in the Premier League this last season, there's almost none that play wide or exclusively wide. Almost none. I mean, I'm going to start reading you out some names here. This isn't going to be the best podcasting, but just go with me here for a minute, right? Eza, Gakpo, Brabi, Ouattara, Osula, Callum Wilson, Kieran Dewsbury-Hall, Noah Okafor, Jaden Anthony, Nick Waltemata. Mostly central players, strikers or midfielders. Okay? Shada, Barry, Raul Jimenez, Bruno Fernandes, Jared Bowen, I guess a wide player, Bruno Guimaraes, Ismail Sarr, Beto, Casemiro, Harry Wilson. Maybe 2 wide players there. Now we're into the top 20. Morgan Rogers, Cole Palmer, Cunha, Fernandez, Richarlison, Zian Fleming, Brian Mbeumo, Sesko, Ekitike, Mateta. Almost all strikers are central players. Welbeck, Krupi, Calvert-Lewin, Gyökeres, all strikers. Gibbs-White, support striker, central midfielder. João Pedro, Oli Watkins, Semenyo, a guy many people think we should have gone for, by the way, to address the wide position. Igor Thiago and Erling Haaland. There's almost no wingers in there. Almost none. Certainly almost no true wingers. And some people aren't even that blown away with Semenyo and would say he got to his goal tally with a hot finishing run for City and then went cold. City fans were mixed on him. It is a weird time in the game to feel like, why don't we get goals from wide positions? Well, maybe the answer is just nobody's getting goals from wide positions. Maybe the reason we're going for Morgan Rogers, the reason we decided ultimately to get Eza, the reason we've invested where we've invested is the goals are coming from strikers and the guys crashing the box behind the strikers. And we're trying to leverage that fact because teams have gotten good at isolating and identifying the threat out wide. You know who you don't hear on that list? No Mohamed Salah. Doku's not on that list. Unfortunately, Saka's not on that list. He was injured. Nani's not on that list. Martinelli's not on that list. Leo Trossard, who we love and thought had a good season, still not on that list. So, you look around and you see these players that are playing in the wide positions, and it's not that they're not facilitating play and it's not that they're not important. They are. But the game feels like it might be evolving, and so maybe it's evolving to players like a Morgan Rogers, right? And that might explain where we're going from. Now, it does feel like the transfer merry-go-round is starting to turn. And this is where we do need to really think about strategy. It is game theory at some point. Because I want to get your takes on, well, if Newcastle can't get Manzambi, can they let Bruno go? But if Villa lose Tielemans, can they let Rodgers go? And all of this merry-go-round, I think, has repercussions for us. So the next section, we are going to do the transfer merry-go-round. But before we do that, I think you can't get on a transfer merry-go-round if you don't know what brands to take with you. You'd be like, I'm on this merry-go-round. I have no brands with me. What do I do? We're going to solve that. So let's talk brands. And I want to tell you about Shopify. Shopify is the e-commerce platform that lets you build beautiful, professional, high-quality e-commerce sites for whatever it is you make or you care about, where you don't have to know the technical stuff. The things you know, what makes your product special, how to describe it, what pictures to show of it. You know the things about what you make and what you care about that have value. What you may not know, how to write code, how to connect to TikTok Shop, Instagram Shop, Facebook Marketplace Shop, things like that, right? How to do cart optimization or shipping or taxation. So Shopify says, hey, write your description, upload your pictures, set your price. We'll tell people, hey, you forgot something in your cart, or other shoppers are buying this with this, or they'll connect it to those social platforms so you can reach your people that love your stuff wherever they are, and they can get your stuff. And they can feel really good about the site they're using because it has that professional quality that gives people confidence to shop from you. So try Shopify and get your products out into the world where they belong. In 2026, stop waiting and start selling with Shopify. Cha-ching! Sign up for your $1 per month trial and start selling today at shopify.com/ArsenalVision. That's shopify.com/ArsenalVision. Go to shopify.com/ArsenalVision. Hear your first cha-ching this new year with Shopify by your side. One other quick update. Want to let you know that we do have an app coming. I'm excited for it. iOS first, Android will follow. It'll be a free app, of course. You can listen to all the episodes in the app, and they'll drop quicker. I know sometimes, like with Apple, for example, the podcast feed just doesn't update right away. This will update right away. You'll be able to vote for stocks, your stock rising, stock falling in the app. You'll be able to connect your Patreon if you want. And if you only want to hear the Patreon episodes and not the main, you can just click a button and only hear those. We'll have the ability to do things in there that you want to do in there. And the things you don't want to do in there, you expressly will not do in there. That is important. wanted you to know about that. Okay, Paul, the transfer merry-go-round. Before we get into the specifics, how much of this interconnectedness do you believe in? People lose their mind when this club's going for this player, it's going to affect us going for that player. Do you think there's as much interconnectedness as we believe, or do you think that's more fan vibes sentiment than it is the reality of the transfer market?
For dealings with Newcastle, I think it's completely interconnected. It'd be one thing if we were going for Bruno Guimaraes and he was the first one out the door. But given that he's their captain, their only remaining midfielder of any note, and like kind of a legend in the making for them, if they ever won anything, which they hopefully never will.
Nope, they won't.
Yeah, and so I think they were leaning on the fact you can sell Tonali because we got Guimaraes. You know, it's like, that's a choice. We'll take the money. We didn't want to lose him, but so be it, and we'll go again.
Gordon, let's not forget.
For sure. Yeah. And like, so then they'll have lost Isak last season, Anthony Gordon, Tonali. It looks like it's a fire sale. And I just don't, unless they have the guy that they can brag about to come in for Guimaraes, I don't think it can get done, or it gets done at such ridiculous money that we're not going to pay completely ridiculous money for Guimaraes. We'll pay slightly ridiculous money or fairly ridiculous money, but not completely, absolutely nutty money. And we're not. I would hope we don't go all season in some kind of war of attrition trying to get the player out of there. It's not going to do anybody any good, I think, at the end of it. So, yeah, they need to have the option in place where they can say, look, we took Arsenal to the cleaners for 80 million, but we bought this guy who's really great, and we're building for the future, which seems to be their current narrative. Even if it isn't a narrative choice, it's the narrative of this is why we sold players we didn't want to sell and took all that money.
Tim, what do you make of that? I mean, it is hard for me to believe that a club of Newcastle's stature, or whatever we perceive it to be, and maybe that stature is changing, can lose Gordon, Tonali, and Guimaraes, and be sort of gazumped from Nzambi, who I think would be a really interesting addition. And by the way, I think a really savvy move for whoever wants to go get him, and still have any ability to compete. Really, I mean, it's just such a talent drain without anything clear coming in to replace it. And I think the order of operations does sometimes matter, because if you're Newcastle and you've already lost Gordon, and you've already lost Tonali, and Nzambi's now seemingly going to Villa, I don't think you can sell Guimaraes until or unless you've got something of value in. I mean, you've got the cash has come in, so I think you need to do that. I think the idea that we can get Newcastle to say yes to a fee that we would be okay spending, absent them having brought something in, is a fantasy. Now, I could be wrong. That could be fan mindset. And I know Kia Jarabshian's involved, and Kia tends to get the things done he wants to get done. But what do you think of that? The idea that Newcastle might have to bring something in before they could possibly countenance accepting a fee, let alone a sort of reasonable fee for Bruno Guimaraes.
Yeah, a lot of this is how much face are they willing to lose here. It feels
they've already lost a lot. Yeah,
yeah. It feels like, and I don't say this pejoratively, like kind of bad PR as much as anything, because really, what Newcastle are in is they need to do a bit of a rebuild, and getting a lot of money for a 28-year-old who's got two. Well, I believe it's emerged he's got 2+1, so they've effectively got him for 3 years. But +1s can be different. Sometimes it can be player side, sometimes it can be club side. But anyway, like, again, economically, it would make a lot of sense for them to make that sale, even having lost Tonali and Gordon, because, you know, they keep bumping up against these regulations, both UEFA and Premier League. And, you know, frankly, they put this group together and they won a League Cup, which I think they would have hoped was the start of something and not the culmination of it. But it looks like with this group, it's going to be the culmination, and they've kind of got to go again. And to be able to go again, they're going to have to raise funds, and they have been messaging about that quite clearly. Not even back channel. They've been saying, look, the reality is we're going to have to sell to buy, and we're going to have to get good at that now. But obviously, having already sold Tonali and and Gordon, that does potentially make it more difficult. I guess what gives me pause, though, is whenever this kind of stuff comes out, like on one hand, I can't think of specific examples off the top of my head. I'm certain we've lost out on targets before because of this, because it's like, well, they'd already sold player X, so they wouldn't budge on player Y. I'm pretty sure that's happened, and that's quite a normal thing that happens. On the other, I feel like what comes out in public, like there's a trail on that, right? I'm pretty sure that like the Tonali thing to Tottenham, that was widely reported for a long time before it happened, and even before something's reported, I'm certain people in football know about it before, like, even someone like David Ornstein. That's presumably who he gets it from in the first place. So there's still a lag on information coming into the public. So when Arsenal are courting a player like Bruno Guimaraes, I don't think they find out that like Tonali's going to Spurs for 100 million because of a David Ornstein tweet. I'm pretty sure they already know that. And, the stuff about Villa hijacking one of their transfers, way to unite against the Red Cartel guys, by the way. I'm pretty sure that people inside the game know that a few days before, or at least know which way the wind's blowing. So that does just give me a little pause where it's like, I'm sure that none of this is a mystery to a club like Arsenal. Now, there's some reporting out there that maybe we were misled on like what this would actually cost.
There's some reporting that 50 million would have gotten it. We were told 50 million was an acceptable number. But
then there's reporting that we've made 2 bids in excess of that. So like, why would we be told 50 million or get it done? We'll just pay 55 because we're really generous. Like,
well, we are rich.
It's like we'll just add on 10%, like, for the hell of it. So, and without naming too many names, I think there is some reporting around Newcastle that can be difficult to trust, shall we say? So I think we are gonna have to wait and see on this one. The bottom line is, of course, it won't make it any easier, will it? It doesn't mean it won't get done, but it's certainly not going to make it easier.
Yeah, Paul, because I want to get to this sort of Villa angle on this. This is where people can get mad at Arsenal, but you have to realize that there's sort of an ecology of transfers, right? There's this symbiosis. So Arsenal think Newcastle have said, look, we're buying Manzambi. When we get him in, we're prepared to consider a bid for Guimaraes, but we really are not going to close that deal until then. Villa gazump Newcastle. We go to Newcastle and say, what does this do for the Guimaraes bid? And they say, well, at this point now, we can't move him. Arsenal reasonably believed they were going to get Guimaraes based on conversations they had around what Newcastle were bringing in. Newcastle lose that player, and they have to change their stance to us. And then people start going, what's Berta doing? And it's like, well, we're all sort of somehow downstream of what each club is doing, right? There are dominoes here that affect each other. And so I wonder what you think of that. And it goes even further now because it looks like United maybe getting Tielemans. Tielemans supposedly has a release clause. Villa lose Tielemans. They get Manzambi. Well, Onana's just done his ACL. Can they lose Onana, Tielemans, and Rodgers with just Manzambi coming in? Again, I don't think so. And I'll tell you something. I don't think the Rodgers deal is close. I don't think we should just assume we're getting Rodgers. And I think until Newcastle have someone they believe they can get in midfield, I don't think the Bruno deal is close. And that's not me being negative. I think that's me looking at the reality of the clubs we're trying to buy from. Look at if the shoe was on the other foot, and we just lost Odegaard, and we just lost Ethan, and we just lost, Zubimendi, and we had a replacement, and someone was bidding for Rice, and the replacement goes to another club, there's no way we could sell it. Now, it's hard for any of us to put ourselves in that position because we're the biggest, most successful, most cherished club in the world. We're the most valued club in the world, obviously. Only we buy, we never sell. It's actually close to true. But
if only we had some experience of losing, I don't know, Cesc and Nasri.
But if you did that, you couldn't be a big club, as a manager famously said. But again, to bring this back to some type of question, do you think that either of those moves, Rodgers or Guimarães, can happen unless and until those clubs have a sense of how they're going to deal with serious, significant losses in those areas and no real replacements lined up?
No, not really. You create a very compelling case. It's a little depressing. When you look at the Villa situation, it's very hard to see how Rodgers gets out of there till they work out how they line up their ducks. And like, maybe we're all going, remember we used to all be financial accountant experts because that's what you needed.
I continue to be, just so we're clear. Yeah.
Net spend, all that good stuff. Maybe we're all about to become far, far more familiar with transfers at Newcastle and Aston Villa and their financial and market positioning and their relationships with their supporters. Because, it doesn't look to me like we've got the easiest exit plans for those players. And, it is part of the problem that we're now very committed to buying from the Premier League. And there's at least a 50-50 chance that the key target you're going for, probably greater than 50% chance that he's in the top layer of the table. And, here's two clubs we've, and I think rightly so, pissed off along the way. Newcastle, Aston Villa. We've now got real beef with these clubs, and it's fun and all to come in for their best player and totally piss them off. But there's a premium you pay for all of that keeps inching the cost of the player up, and I think makes Bruno Guimarães less and less likely. I still think Rodgers, there's going to be a way to get that done somehow, because Mikel normally gets his number one choice during the summer historically, and that feels to me his number one choice. But the Bruno one, I mean, there's definitely a price at which we say this is silly, and there's a silly price for Rodgers that we stay in for quite a while. But yeah, there's a series of moves, but those clubs need to make those moves and have a plan for them. Now we're relying on their ability to execute in the market. It's a lot of dependencies.
There are a lot of dependencies. And this is the thing. And this goes back to my point about we just won the title, so we love all our players, and we don't want to say anything negative about them, the team, the club, any of that. But we want to continue to go and build on that season we just had. I would argue the past 4 seasons, last season wasn't our best from a performance standpoint, but you don't control all the variables in a title-winning season. And over the 4-year stretch, we definitely deserved at least one title, and we got one. That's how I kind of think about it. And it happened to be this one season. I'm very glad we did. And it was the depth of our squad that helped us get there during a very attritional season. If you told me we don't win the title this coming season, I do not think it's going to be because we ship a ton of goals. It's going to be because we don't score enough goals. I mean, I think we would all agree that if you had to pick one or the other, that would be probably what you'd think, right? And Tim, I mean, we scored 71 goals this past season. Now, it was a down season for goals, but the last time we did that, we were 10 points off the title. I don't think we can score 71 goals again and assume that we'll be winning a title or even really in the title race. Now, maybe we will. Maybe the league is changing. But I think we have to approach this summer with the position that 71 goals won't do it. And I think Mikel Arteta has spoken to that, by the way, that we need more goals. And that means being clear-eyed about the talent we have in the attacking group. We've really locked into Rodgers, which suggests to me that Mikel and the club must feel that Rodgers is how we get more goals. But let's just say for a second that that's not a clear and obvious approach. I mean, is there a world where we say this Villa and Newcastle stuff is too dynamic, it's too fluid, it's going to be too hard for us to pull off, and we go and we look at players who are actual, genuine, forwards, attackers, players who can come in and get goals. And that leads you to name like Barcola. But I'm wondering, where else it leads you. And it goes back to my point about how few clear options there are there. So is there another approach that you think that we could pivot to at this point in the window to look at more natural attacking options who ensure that it isn't goal scoring that causes us to fall short this season?
Yeah, maybe. Maybe we change the whole medical staff, and that solves all our problems. And yeah,
we have. Yeah, yeah.
I was burying the lead there.
Well, all right. Can I give you a hypothetical? Quick hypothetical. And I'm going to ask you both, just super quick. Sorry to cut across you, but I meant to ask this sooner. I am going to offer you one of two things. No transfers at all. None out, none in. So Leo's not going. Nobody leaves, nobody comes in. But you're guaranteed every player is 100% fit the entire season. Every player, you can pick them for every game. Or, I can't guarantee you fitness. You have to roll the dice on that. But you can have whatever signings you want. Which are you taking, the fitness or the signings?
Oh, if it's whatever signings I want, then I'm taking that.
Whatever.
If it's who we're linked with, credibly, I'm probably taking the fitness. I'm probably saying, yeah, Saka, Havertz, Ødegaard. I suppose with Ødegaard, it's as much form. Am I getting the form with the fitness? That's a bit
I'd still take the fitness every game of Saka, every game of Kai or Gyökeres, every game of Leo or Martinelli. If you want to play Eza over there, it means you can, Ødegaard and Rice and Zubimendi and Miles and all the defenders. I mean, I don't see anybody challenging us if every one of our players is fully fit for the season. Now, by the way, you can't have that. That's the whole point. But I don't think we have a deficit of talent.
That's not going to happen.
Right.
Which is what we did last season as well. And it didn't happen, and we were right to plan that way. And to your point, we have to plan that winning the goal was 71. Only 3 Premier League champions have scored fewer. So it's not unprecedented. One of which was us, actually, in 97-98. One of which was Leicester.
Heritage.
So...
and we're likely to need a lot more open play goals because the PGMOL is coming for our corners.
Yeah, because there's a big moral panic about scoring from corners. Yeah, I exactly. And we might be fine. We might. I actually think, given what they're proposing with corners, I don't expect it'll impact us too much because. Because lots of people have just assumed because we're good at corners that we've got everyone in a headlock. And actually, when you look at our corners, what happens is everyone goes to the back post and runs in. There's actually not that much physical contact at all.
It's almost like, so you're saying the rule is Gabriel Magalhaes has a free run at the 6-yard box? Oh no, don't do that.
Yeah, exactly. But what I would kind of plan on is that there is pressure on the Premier League for some reason to have fewer goals from corners. I don't know why. I don't know why equivalent moral panics don't exist. I don't know why, if we have a season of lots of players scoring from long range, do some influential people say, I don't like goals from long range, get rid of them? I don't know. I don't know what this is all about, but that's another rant altogether. But I'm with you, Paul. Let's plan on the fact that we will probably get goals from corners ruled out for no other reason than probably the referee will feel under pressure, like there's a quota or something I've got to disallow this for some reason. We have seen that during the World Cup. So, plan on all the disaster scenarios, definitely. So, if you offered me one of those two, I'm taking the fitness. But I also know that's very unlikely to happen, particularly off the back of a World Cup year. Our 2 best title challenges really our 3 best, to be honest, have come off the back of non-tournament summers. And you could argue that the first one, the mid-season World Cup, had something to do with it. Maybe it didn't, I don't know, but it was there and we weren't as good after it. So, it's maybe semi-unprecedented for us to really put together a title challenge under Mikel Arteta off the back of a tournament. So we have to disaster plan 100%.
Well, okay. Yes, agreed.
And we won it last year because the disasters happened.
Yeah.
We got the big injuries and we mitigated against them.
And the squad came through. And they did. And so now, Paul, to my point about Is it Rodgers that boosts the attack? Is it Guimaraes that gives us more of that progressiveness? There is another player back on the agenda that's kind of re-entered the picture, and that's Julian Alvarez. Atleti seem open to selling. I don't think they'd like to sell to Barcelona. I think it's possible we're being used in a inevitable move to Barcelona. I mean, we've seen this before, where a third club gets sort of brought, or a second club, gets brought into the picture to force the other side to the table in a proper way. But Julian Alvarez obviously just scored a brilliant goal in the World Cup, so now he is once again the best player in the world and the one we should be going for, after having not really impressed in the World Cup prior to that, but that's beside the point. I really rate the player. I am dubious about whether he wants to be in England and at Arsenal when it's pretty clear that Barcelona is his first choice. Now, the idea that a player comes to you when you're second choice and then doesn't work his ass off and try hard to win, I don't buy that. I think if they come, they play as hard as they can and they try their best. But I certainly, think that would be an issue for some. I think Mikel Arteta is someone who only wants players that really want to be a part of the project. What do you make of those rumors resurfacing, the extent to which there could be a there, and whether that is the player who could boost our attack to the goal level that it needs to hit?
Yeah, so, look, I've obviously got no sources, I'm with you on that. Which is great. I got a clean sheet of paper here, and there's a chance. There's absolutely a chance. Let me make the case for why there's a chance. Barcelona would probably go deep into the window, stinking the place up to make it very difficult for Julian Alvarez to stay with Atletico Madrid. But Atletico Madrid really don't want to let him go to Barcelona and would welcome any other option. So he may not be quite as ridiculous for us price-wise as he would otherwise be. Mikel's worked with him. So they either like each other or they hate each other. It's very probable they like each other a lot. Alvarez left the Premier League because he wanted to go back to Spain. But Spain's a small place. So if you're going to go back to the Premier League, a place that maybe he decided wasn't his favorite thing for his style of football, at least he's gone back to Mikel, who he knows. And the Barcelona thing may not pan out in terms of a deal. So what are the odds? Maybe 10, 15%. The problem might be if it happened so late in the window that we'd, with Bruno Guimaraes and Morgan Rogers wearing the red and white of Arsenal, we might be going through the petty cash tray and finding £5.23. And that's always the problem with Barcelona. But there's absolutely a path there. Improbable as it may be, I'd put maybe 15%, 20% on it. Maybe that's a little high even, because other options do come up along the way somehow that we're not seeing in our universe, where there's only two places he can go. But look, there's a chance and there's a relationship, and Mikel's pretty good talking to players, and they speak the same language, they have the same reference points. He's from Barcelona himself, from their academy. They've so much common material to work with that it's definitely a possibility. And he's Arteta's maybe dream attacker, and that's got to be appealing to Julian Alvarez too. And we've been in the final of the Champions League, semi-final of the Champions League, which is something Barcelona haven't been recently. Not the final anyway. So we have a lot of chips to play with.
Yeah.
We can pay.
Yeah, I really like Julian Alvarez. He's the kind of player I like. You think he can influence the game in different areas. He can move out wide. He can play through the middle. He can score you spectacular goals. He can help create goals. I realize his output for Atleti wasn't spectacular this past season. But as we've discussed, first of all, the output from individual players in general is down. Other than Erling Haaland, non-penalty goals from players are in the sort of 14, 12, 10 goals in the Premier League. Those are your leaders. That's what you're getting. Our top goal scorer had 11 non-penalty goals this season in the Premier League, and that was Victor Gyökeres, I believe. Or thereabouts. So it's, you're not talking about who's the next 30 goal scorer for Arsenal. That's just not the era we're in. I think Arsenal have looked better under Mikel Arteta. when we play with forwards who can be part of the buildup and combine and drop into midfield more. And we've had issues with that, certainly. There were times when Jesus was dropping too much into midfield. If you go back before that, when Lacazette was dropping too much into midfield and not getting into the box to support the attack. But I think our best attacks generally have an on-ball, build-up involved attacker, and I think Julian Alvarez could be that guy. Tim, you have thoughts on him?
Yeah, I'm kind of I can understand why, this might be Arteta's first choice. Whether it's the most realisable, I don't know, but it kind of feels like he's a bit Morgan Rogers, but he's a bit Kai Havertz as well. I think that's kind of what we're getting at here. Like, he's got that shot from the edge of the area, and that seems to be of some importance, I think, to Arteta in buying Eze, being interested in Morgan Rogers. He wants more weight, and Zubimendi as well. Like, clearly he wants that kind of that threat at the top of the box quite a bit more. Alvarez gives you that, but he comes back into midfield and he links and he does all that nice stuff as well. And I think because ultimately the kind of, I guess, riddle with like an elite team is if you're going to have like a truly elite goal scorer who can get 25, 30 goals a season, and this isn't new, by the way, quite often the thing they share in common is that they're not really going to be involved in the build-up. Like Haaland isn't, like Van Nistelrooy wasn't, like Ian Wright wasn't. This is where Thierry Henry was a real unicorn. Like, you're always making that trade-off, and to make that trade-off worthwhile, the player has to score 25 to 30 goals a season, because, like, we're kind of losing something by you being there. Same with, like, we were talking about Jude Bellingham earlier. There were genuine and I think understandable kind of articles about whether he should come to the World Cup. Tuchel actually did leave him out. Sometimes those players do give you a tactical problem, but basically if they keep scoring enough goals, then that's fine. And to your point, Elliot, I'm not sure that player is out there. I'm not sure that player exists in terms of like, this guy will score 30 goals a season and therefore all his other shortcomings won't bother us. Like Gyökeres. Gyökeres has those shortcomings as well. And the debate there will always be, does he score enough goals to make up for those shortcomings? And people will vary on that. Whereas Alvarez feels to me like a bit of a hybrid between a lot of the players that we're interested in. So I can definitely see why, if it was Arteta's choice and you took out all the usual factors that dominate whether you get signings done or not, that Alvarez would probably be his kind of dream signing.
Yeah. And managers have this thing where they often like to go for a player that they were impressed by when they played against them. I don't know if this is the case for Emery, but obviously Manzambi, who Villa are going for now, plays for Freiburg. Freiburg played against Villa in their Europa League final, right? Julian Alvarez, Mikel got to play against him 3 times this season. I think he impressed against us. I do. But also those games, what happens in those games is you might have a chance to meet their agent. Yeah, talk to them, shake their hand at full time, put an arm around them, see how you like. Did you see the Martinez video after Argentina, Switzerland, where he goes up to, you've just said his name and I've forgotten his name, the Swiss Manzambi?
Midfielder. Yeah, Manzambi. It's so funny. He just goes up to him and goes, "You coming to Villa?" And he goes, "Yeah." And that's
no way.
Yeah.
I haven't seen it. That's amazing.
It's so good. Yeah.
Oh, that's hilarious. Yeah. And by the way, I mean, to that point, a lot of the silliness is starting. I don't know if you saw it, but Bukayo Saka had an Instagram post of him wearing his England shirt. Just so happens, don't read anything into it, it's him standing next to Morgan Rogers in his England shirt. Just the two of them. That's it. That's the post. Not shit stirring at all, I promise. So yeah, this is definitely silly season for that reason. Paul, sort of a final thought there on how this works. Because look, Barcola, great player, would love him at Arsenal. Alvarez, great player, would love him at Arsenal. Rogers, great player, would love him at Arsenal. Bruno, great player, love him at Arsenal. I would take all 4. We got to get back to reality. I don't think that's going to happen. And I think very clearly the remit has to be, can Arsenal bring in players who help us progress the ball into the attacking third and create more goals so that we are not looking at next season saying we fell short because of goals and that was predictable and avoidable, right? That is the remit this summer in my mind. So do you think, like, do you see the Barcola and Alvarez thing as maybe where there's opportunity, that the vagaries of what's happening with Newcastle and Villa means we shouldn't have all our eggs in those baskets? And most importantly, maybe, are you starting to get any agita, any concern, any feeling of saying, it's July 13th, we're going to be in Dublin doing a preseason show in 3 weeks. We're going to be playing the Community Shield in 4 weeks. I mean, it sounds crazy, but it's probably time to get moving,
Yeah. Am I getting any agita? There's a word I've never used before. I'm probably getting a bit of agita.
Agita. Is it agita or agita?
Well, if I'm saying it, it's going to be agita because I'm Irish.
Yeah, I think it's agita. I think you're
How do you
right. I think
spell
it's
it?
pronounced agita, but spelled agita.
Yeah. Well, it depends where you live. A lot of things are spelled one way and pronounced differently depending. I'm going to go with agita.
Yeah. You're right. Agita.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's my answer. No, I've got agita about when the agita will kick in, basically. And I have that scheduled for a few weeks out. Way too early, lads. Wait, I'm enjoying the World Cup. And I don't... how can I be getting agita without the World Cup being over and like a week put in where like lots of photos of guys on vacation, and then we go bananas about how Arsenal's done nothing, but every other club has signed up all the players they wanted apart from the clubs. We have a chain of events that need to be done before we get to. So there's plenty of time for that, I think, and yet so little time left in the summer because of the bloody World Cup. So you can schedule it. It'll be the week after the World Cup. That's when everybody else will be going nuts, and therefore it will leak. It will pee in my pool, and I'll be getting wound up too. So we got time for that. There's a place for. There's a season. There's
to everything. Turn. There's
turn. It's coming.
Yep.
Don't worry.
I guess I'll give you, Tim. This can be sort of where we wrap this because we've got a lot to do still. Like I said, we're going to do player ratings pod. We're going to get back into scouting some players, probably a Julian Alvarez scouting video. Are we saying Julian Alvarez or Julian Alvarez, by the way? Tim, thoughts there?
Don't know.
Or Julian. You could go with Julian.
So of the three options, go with the worst? Check. Got that. Tim, is it go time? Like I want to be clear. I just don't have the energy to be angry at Arsenal for anything at the moment. But I acknowledge that we're getting to the end of the World Cup. Some of the players we are linked with are still there. So that is just a reality, right? Rodgers is still there. Julian Alvarez is still there.
His middle name's, I'm just looking it up, Ajita.
Don't know it isn't. Are you ready? Are you prepared to say it's sort of getting to go time, and that while none of us are angry, but you're prepared to start saying, okay, now we need to start seeing some movement in the market?
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously to do with the World Cup because all the stuff you're seeing now is generally people who've just been knocked out. So, like, we're hearing about Trossard now, aren't we, going because Belgium just got knocked out, and the Bruno Guimaraes stuff started after Brazil got knocked out. So, like, that seems to be how things are kind of going. I still look at broadly our competitors, like Liverpool have bought Jeremy Jacket, haven't they? I know that's not how you pronounce it.
No. That's in keeping with our pronunciation approach.
That is how I'm going to be pronouncing it.
Our protocol for pronunciation.
Let's just hope they don't coat him off if he doesn't perform very well.
Nice one.
and that's kind of a youth signing, isn't it? And like, so United, what they done, like Andre Santos from Chelsea, decent opportunistic signing. Looks like they're going to do a release clause for Tielemans. Again, Belgium went out a couple of days ago. That's starting to ferment a bit. So I do think there's a lot of that. But personally, I think I said this on the pod a couple of weeks ago. I'm actually okay with some of these deals going right down to the wire if needs be, because I think our squad is in good shape still, basically. I'm not saying I don't want any improvements at all or blah, 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 but I'm not looking at us and going, oh my God, like if we don't get that player, I don't know who we're going to play there, like the cupboards. But I don't think our cupboard is bare anywhere, really. I think what we're looking
not even with the fitness concerns?
No, I mean, it wouldn't be ideal, but we're talking about maybe 2 or 3 games I could live with it in a way that, like, for example, last summer I couldn't. Last summer it was like, no, we need numbers as much as anything. Whereas here, I think we're looking to put a cherry on the cake somewhere. And I'm personally a bit more patient with that because I think we're in quite good shape. It looks like we're going to be buying like Premier League ready players or Premier League experienced players. And therefore, the whole missing pre-season thing, so long as they're fit and in shape, to be honest, it sounds like most of them would miss pre-season anyway because of the World Cup. So don't get me wrong, it wouldn't be ideal. I'd prefer for things to be done as quickly as possible. I'm sure everyone would. But I'm not quite in that now bracket, no.
Yeah, and I think you have to take every transfer window in isolation and accept that a World Cup pushes everything later. That our season properly ended as late as it ever has, that some of the players we're looking at, the tier we're shopping in now, those players, in order to get them, they're more complicated transfer sagas, and they are connected to what those clubs are able to do to replace the talent you're taking away. If you want to buy a Christos Solis from Brugge, they don't want to lose him, but they can use the money, and they know there's a deal to be struck. When you want to buy a Morgan Rogers out of Villa or a Bruno Guimaraes, the captain of Newcastle, after they've lost two huge players already. If you want to buy a Julian Alvarez, or if you want to buy a Bradley Barcola from clubs that are big and have huge ambitions and lots of money, those are difficult transfers. They're harder to do given that the players are still at the World Cup, and they're further complicated by the agents involved in the clubs you're dealing with. So I do think we probably, it would behoove us to get some of the basics done. Leo's gone. Let's get that Solis deal done. If we have some younger players we want to bring in or squad type players we want to bring in and or move out, let's start seeing that activity get done. If,
it sounds like the Trossard and I'm going to call him Solis again because I like it. It does sound like they're very linked. In fact, I think maybe Fabrizio Romano said those two things are linked, and basically as soon as the Trossard deal is done, Arsenal will press the button.
Yeah. So that'd be good. A new player to get excited about. We've scouted him. You can go have a look. But the big deals, they're going to take time, and I don't think it's beyond the realm of possibility that this is one where we're looking at our major signings coming in quite late, and that the start of the season is a bit tricky, that we're having to rest players who need rest, and our new signings aren't bedded in, and we're playing some players we wouldn't expect to play. But maybe that creates an opportunity for players like Ethan, Max, Miles. These are talented young players who could come to the fore. Could be a very exciting start to the season. You know what? Here's the cool thing. We're going to find out together. Let's knock it on the head there. We'll have some good patron stuff for you this week, as we always do, but we will also have World Cup dailies. So there's something for everyone, and I hope you're enjoying that. I do just want to send our best wishes to Phil, of course, to get well. I really miss podcasting with him. I'm really enjoying podcasting with Timsy, but obviously really miss Phil, and so I want his voice to come back so we can get him back on the pod soon. He is a certified ball knower. To the others on the pod, I will say thank you. Paul?
Woohoo!
Yep. Tim, thanks, man.
My pleasure as always.
Good luck to England, of course. And to me. Well, you know what? Say whatever you want to me. My chest is here. Hit me, as Mikel once said. But don't. I'm really sensitive. I take it very personally. We love you. And we'll talk after Arsenal 10 transfer.